All right, man. The playoffs, they've been extremely exciting, very unpredictable. They've taken wild turn after wild turn after wild turn, and it's just hard to process in one sitting. So kind of like last week, I literally just want to vent. Let's start with the most exciting, for obvious reasons, yet surprising, at least to me, series so far, Golden State versus LA. This Warriors team is pretty flawed, and they're just not quite the same as last year. And we've seen it throughout the season. We've talked about it a lot, but it's kind of been hidden by Steph's heroics and Klay's heroics, etc. But against a team like the Lakers that's very defensively sound, it's really exposed. The Warriors, they just don't have enough consistent help offensively for Steph. And to me, they're too reliant on how magical he can be, which ultimately makes them one-dimensional. Also, that team is way too reliant on three-pointers, and in this specific series, they can't really attack the rim because of how dominant Anthony Davis has been defensively. Fun fact, they've already shot 65 more three-pointers than LA. Anthony Davis has a 100 defensive rating in this specific series. That's insane. And AD's been so disruptive defensively and such a presence defensively that Steve Kerr's pulling every trick out of his bag to really try to work around that man's length. In game 2, it was the JaMychal Green game where they took Kevon Looney out the starting lineup. He was sick, but I think it was partially strategic as well. And you really can't play Kevon Looney and Draymond Green on the same court against that team because you just don't have enough offense. And it worked. JaMychal Green hit enough shots. The offense was spread out. Klay Thompson had a big game, man. You pulled AD away from the basket. It was a good chess move, and it worked for that specific game. Game 3 was just a defensive masterclass from Anthony Davis. Like, this man is so versatile defensively where he can still switch on the guard or Stephen Curry on the high pick and roll and still recover to the screener if need be. When Golden State plays Kevon Looney, which they still have to for rebounds, he can kind of camp out in the paint, cover whatever side the ball is on, and still recover to the weak side of the defense because of his length. And when Golden State attacks the basket, which they really can't do too much, he can alter whatever shot at the rim with one hand and play the passing lane with the other. Like, it is all-time type of defensive stuff that we're seeing from Anthony Davis. It's not like Golden State hasn't really had their chances. They've actually shot 26 more shots than LA. They're winning the rebound differential against LA. They're just struggling to score in the half court really against Anthony Davis. Jordan Poole, he's just struggling, and it seems like he's lost all his confidence. Klay Thompson, he can't put together consistent back-to-back good playoff games. Andrew Wiggins, he's been relatively quiet. Draymond Green doesn't even look at the basket. Kevon Looney, he's not an offensive threat. Gary Payton, he's more so used in backdoor cuts with the ball movement, and everything else really just falls on 30. That's not enough. For the Lakers side of things, LeBron is on the deepest team of his entire career. And I kind of thought about this heavily before I said that, but it's actually facts. He doesn't even really need this quote unquote third star top heavy team because they come at you in different waves. Last series, it was obviously Anthony Davis, but it was also the quote unquote others with Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura. And then in this series, it was obviously a lot of Anthony Davis in that dominant performance he had in game 1. And then in game 3, when the offense stalled out in the first half, D'Lo gave him a spark, and Anthony Davis came alive in the second half, and then the shooter hit big shots. Lonnie Walker came out of nowhere. Game 4, D'Lo struggles and essentially gets benched in the second half, but Austin Reeves makes up for his points and gives them productivity. Lonnie Walker saves the day in the fourth quarter. This team has so much depth that they're not predicated on what LeBron and AD specifically gives them offensively, and that makes them dangerous. Tonight, the only thing that possibly worries me for the Lakers side of things is if they get comfortable and Anthony Davis has like a dud game, because you know he can do that from time to time. But if they're focused, I don't know if Golden State can come back from this. I'm not gonna lie. Boston versus Philly. This is easily one of the toughest series to predict on a night-to-night basis because you don't know what you're getting from two stars on both teams, James Harden and Jason Tatum. In game 1, where nobody really expected Philly to win, he came out and arguably had his greatest playoff game I've ever seen him play. Like, without Joel Embiid, he attacked the basket, he was aggressive, he didn't miss a free throw, he hit 7 threes, he only had 6 assists, which I like because that means he was aggressive. He had 15 points in the fourth quarter. Like, it was real reminiscent of Houston James Harden. And then in games 2 and 3, when Joel Embiid comes back, he was tentative again, a little bit unsure. He couldn't hit anything. He was 5 for 28 in those games collectively, a minus 33 plus minus. And it kind of felt like, okay, this is the James Harden that we can kind of expect around this time of year. And then in game 4, he was incredible again. Game 4, he scores 42 points. 2 out of his top 6 performances in the playoffs as far as points came in this last week. He scored 10 out of the 15 points they scored in the fourth quarter, which they needed because Joel Embiid was kind of getting locked up by Al Horford in that fourth quarter. And he hit the big shot in overtime when Jaylen Brown double-teamed Joel Embiid and closed out a little bit too late, and he hit that corner 3. And it's like, I just can't read these 2 stars. Jason Tatum, I love him, bro. Like, he's very talented, and I'm trying to view him as a superstar. But is he that guy or not? In these last 2 games, he started the games out very slow, and to me that contributes to Boston really starting the game out very slow. Game 4, he's 1 for 9 at the half, and they're down by 9 at the half. And I believe how slow he continues to start digs them in too deep of a hole to eventually climb back from. Game 5, kind of the same thing. He's 3 for 11. They're down by 9 at the half. And by that time, Philly, they established momentum and they're dictating the pace and they're controlling the game. And James Harden and Joel Embiid, they're running pick and rolls. In Boston, they're playing from this deficit. Jaylen Brown has really been the only tone setter for this team, and that's a problem because it really should be them both, and it hasn't been. And to me, that makes it advantage Philly. Philly, on the other hand, they've come out strong. Joel Embiid had 21 points at the first half, I believe, last night. 9 for 9 from the free throw line. Tobias Harris had 12 points. I believe Maxey and Harden had 11, and they've established that momentum. I don't know if it's Joe Mazzulla not being able to ignite that team because last night in a pivotal game 5 at home, they just came out so damn flat. Or if it's Jason Tatum supposedly being their best player and coming out way too sluggish and helping them get back in the second half, but by that time, it's a little bit too late. Denver versus Phoenix, even with the series being at one point tied 2 games apiece, I still don't like Phoenix's chances. I feel like Kevin Durant, outside of that one spurt he had with Golden State, he keeps finding themselves on rosters where it's him and another dominant guard, and the rest of the roster is pretty much weak. This team kind of reminds me of OKC in 2016 and Brooklyn last year. Bro, Devin Booker has been incredible, like historically great. I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later in the week. But in the wins they had this year, this man is averaging, or in the playoffs, the wins they had this year, this man is averaging 41 points on 67, 56, 87 splits. How sustainable is that? Think about it like this. Devin Booker has basically been doing this for the majority of the playoffs, excluding last night's game. And do you know what Phoenix's point differential has been for these playoffs? 0. That's because their wins, they're relatively tight, with them needing every single point Devin Booker and Kevin Durant scores, and their losses, especially in this series, they're pretty much by a significant margin. Also defensively, and we always knew this would likely be a problem for this team, they can't stop anybody, so their defense is really how much they can outgun you offensively with their 2 best players. Against the Clippers, without their 2 best players for the majority of the series and a player that historically struggles in the playoffs, the Clippers still had a 118 offensive rating. Against Denver, you know what team has the highest offensive rating in the second round? It's the Denver Nuggets, and even the games Phoenix won, it was offensive fireworks from both teams, and I don't know how sustainable that is, especially when you rely heavily on 2 stars like they do. So to me, if Phoenix is actually going to have a chance, they need Landry Shamet to step up like he did in Game 4, Terrence Ross to do the same, he's been good as of late, TJ Warren the same thing, and DeAndre Ayton, he has to be engaged. Like, Nikola Jokic has 69 rebounds so far in this series. He has 41. He shouldn't be getting destroyed on the glass like he has been. For Denver side of things, I don't think they're still the best defensively, but I still like their position, at least in this series. Nikola Jokic is averaging a 35-point triple-double. They have 2 players averaging 24 points plus. They have 5 players damn near averaging 14 points plus. Phoenix, they only have 2 players averaging over 11 points, and we obviously know who they are. Miami versus New York. This series has been really what I expected it to be. Ugly, low scoring, tough, and I truly only have 2 real takeaways from watching this series so far. First of all, the Miami Heat. I'm never ever doubting their regular season or what they did in their regular season ever again. I don't care if they're below 500, whatever. If they get in and they have Jimmy Butler, that team is going to be dangerous. That thing Shaq calls the others, yeah, they have a bunch of those, and they just get the most random production out of them in the most pivotal times. Last series, it was obviously a lot of Jimmy Butler, but it was also Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin and Kevin Love and Duncan Robinson out of nowhere. In this series, it's been a lot of Max Strus. Like, I don't quite understand it. I respect Heat culture, but what I do know is they had one of the best coaches in the sport. in game 3 with that deadly small ball lineup pretty much making Mitchell Robinson unplayable, and the Knicks, they just had a hard time driving and getting quality looks. They were able to space the floor, keep New York's offense in front of them, and without Mitchell Robinson, win that rebound differential. And then in game 4, like Julius Randle said, I think Miami just wanted it more. They were plus 13 on the boards, plus 5 on the offensive rebounds. Caleb Martin had 3 offensive boards, and they were pivotal rebounds. And Julius Randle, one of their best players, New York's best players, he kind of checked out to me. This man was extremely lazy defensively, fighting over screens. He wouldn't get back if they turned the ball over. And to me, he just can't be a second best player at all. Even on the offense side of things, he's really been a disaster all playoffs. Like, he's a ball stopper. He struggles to play within the flow of the offense. And you can't just give him the ball like he's Joel Embiid and ask him to go to work, because as soon as he drives and try to take Bam Adebayo in the post, they collapse on him, and it's a real inefficient shot for him. So I'm just not a big fan of Julius Randle as your second best player. RJ Barrett, he's really earned my respect throughout these playoffs. I can't lie. Jalen Brunson is doing as much as he possibly can against a great defense like that at his size. And Josh Hart, he was a great pickup, but Julius Randle being one of your pivotal players, this is probably New York's ceiling with that. If you guys like this video, please like this video. It shows me you guys like the vent sessions where I just kind of get some stats that I want to use to make my points and just talk behind the mic. Follow my social media sites for all my live reactions to everything that's going on. Turn on post notifications, do all that great stuff, guys. And until next time, as always, stay tuned.